Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Blessed with Bray. Today, I have some danger in front of me. And what I mean by that is I have two individuals that have done the work. They have explored their own healing journey. They have tapped into being the healthiest versions of themselves. And the reason it is dangerous because they have created this bond, this partnership, this romantic relationship that allows them to use that power that they have created within themselves to now put together that what creates this danger. And that danger looks in the form of beauty, of love, of peace, of groundness. And I'm excited for y'all to hear a lot of their insights on how they've created this for themselves. And without further ado, I would love you guys to just welcome my friends, River and Camille. How you doing? How you doing? Yeah, see, that was okay. If I had some more clickbait, I would have been able to do, but I thought it was good. It's still good. Yeah, I like to starting out kind of some warm up questions, and they're still insightful and deep, but I will get into more deep perspectives. I like to start because today we're grounded, we're present in the moment, and we're flowing. And I want to take a moment to look past these past 6 months and look forward to your next 6 months. And I know you guys have a lot to look forward to, and as we all do, but like you guys, especially with with your trip. But I want to, what is something that comes up in these last 6 months that usually the question I ask is around what are you proud of? And I want to look at in the context of your guys' relationship. What are you guys most proud of over these past 6 months with your guys' relationship? So we went deep, I know, like but it's not as deep as we're gonna get. Yeah, bring it. That's good right there.
Okay,
Beautiful.
cool.
Wherever you might.
Something I'm definitely proud of in terms of not only our relationship, but I think I might have even answered it the same way. It was just about my life.
Mm,
Is there's so many things going into a partnership. When you're a single person, you have all this vision, what you want, a conscious relationship, what you want in a partner, how you want to show up, and you don't really know how that's gonna look until you're actually faced with it. And so I would say that one of my core wounds of lifetime, I feel like everyone has an area that's stickier than others, is relationship. I've had to navigate rough waters in my past. And
yeah.
so it exiting a past relationship and knowing my patterns, I want to grow in this direction, and then facing the relationship really of my dreams, but actually showing up. And it's not that it's perfect, there's not challenging and disagreements, but for us both to be able to show up in a way that inspires me, in a way that like most of us don't see growing up and most of us strive for almost blindly. If you really think of most relationships in your life, very few people I could count on one hand at most of relationships that actually look up to you truly, wholeheartedly in all aspects. And so to actually be that now, and it's inspiring, it's expansive for my own like life to be like, okay, so the things that we strive for that sometimes we don't actually see in our life, our soul knows it's possible, and then to actually step into that is pretty.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
That's beautiful. Hey, River, I think if you twist that guy on the, yeah, it should tighten it. I could be wrong. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Bring it back to that guy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then this also is gonna.
Yeah. You can turn. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. This is the first. We're experiencing this real time. It could, maybe it actually doesn't. Yeah. 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 I think it's used to facing the other way. So maybe it's tilted to the way.
Used to facing.
Yeah. Like that. So I don't know if.
That's it.
Yeah. You may just have to
Yeah,
hold it a little bit.
That's all good.
Yeah.
So something
Last 6 months.
last
Proud.
6 months
moment.
in terms of relationship.
Yep.
I feel like I've done a good job, and I'm proud of the way that I've leaned in to the relationship and not taken a step back or tried to strayed in terms of just facing things head on that come up, challenges specifically, and any opportunity for growth, for reflection. That's such a big part of a relationship. How I see it is a way to have the other person to reflect back to you where you maybe are coming up short or where you could improve and be better as a person showing up in general for yourself, but also for your partner. And I think, yeah, not perfect for sure, but I feel good about how I'm showing up and just taking advantage to try to lean in, especially when it's difficult, when you don't want to and everything's telling you like, no, don't go into that cave, don't deal with that, push it off for later, and just making it a habit. We just do that as much as we can, and pretty much all the time it feels like and we can both feel it if we don't do that. It seems like we're pretty in tune with when it's obvious, and then when you're in your own head and you're each dealing with your own stuff that the other person doesn't know about yet, maybe until you share it. It's like that's when it's really up to you to lean in, and the responsibility is fully in your hands. Yeah, proud of that.
Love it. You guys just gave me a lot to move forward on. But before I lean into that, how about the next 6 months? What are you looking forward to? What are you most excited about?
So I would say one of the thing that comes to mind first is just getting to connect with each other in terms of things that we both really value in terms of our lifestyle. So being near the ocean, being in nature, being able to
Where are you going?
to play. We're going to Hawaii. Yeah. So we're moving to Hawaii, and I've lived there in the past a few times, but she's just had a short stint for a few months there before. But since we've known each other, we've lived in Austin, which has been beautiful and amazing, but we're both on the same page that we were going to be not here forever, and that home long-term wasn't going to be likely in a city. And so now it's going somewhere a little bit deeper and closer in alignment to where we connect in a deeper and more authentic way, I think. That's
Beautiful.
exciting. Yeah.
Beautiful. Camille?
Slightly different. Definitely has to do with being in Hawaii together and just more immersed in nature, which is really a value of both of ours. And I think what I'm most excited about, we got a little taste of it when we were there in January, but River's a passionate surfer. And I think this applies to just relationship in general. As you get to know someone, there's like novelty when you get to see a different side of them, like doing something that they love. That I've never seen you snowboard, passion of yours, and surfing. We only had little waves, and he was teaching me to surf. So it was really like he didn't get to shine in that aspect yet. And so getting to see him do that and have access to that and just being nature in general is so important to both of us that I think place that.
Yeah, that's so cool. Like that perspective, like in terms, because passions, we all have these passions that really light up our soul, and you haven't seen that side of him, which is really cool that I'm excited for you.
It's funny. I even see it like, you'll wear a t-shirt I've never seen. We both do this. We're like, what? Like, I've never seen you in yellow. There's just like seeing sides of someone. It can be little things and big things. It's a nice reminder too. You can know someone so well, but those little reminders of, oh wait, I don't know that side of you, or you also are this and you're also that. It's
that's so cool. I want to transition this. I want to go on a kind of a journey here where like the end game is like you guys are in this relationship. Because something you said that really stuck with me in regards to, I think most people in our lives, we never really get the relationships that our soul desires. Because for various different reasons that our parents didn't know how to develop that, their parents didn't know how to develop. It's been a cultural thing. It's been a cycle of not knowing how to really develop strong relationships, especially with men. We're taught to not have those type of things, or open up and express ourselves and call out what we want from the world. And I find it beautiful. It's cool and awesome because we see it more often, these people having these deeper relationships. And I can feel the energy of the world, and even people here seeking and wanting that even more. And I think it's fun to be a part of that and seeing that. And I'm curious, like, for you guys, because I believe there's always that relationship with ourself first that allows that component to find those deeper relationships with other people. And what was the work that you feel that, we'll start with you, Camille, that you've gone down in your own healing journey that gave, like now hindsight looking back, you find River. What was something that you felt like because of you done the work on yourself, you were able to allow the expansion and the room for someone like River to step into your life? What were the specific, like where were you at in life?
How long do you have?
Yeah, exactly. So just think practically, if someone else is listening and struggling to find love, it starts here.
Yeah, I think actually, look, it's been a journey.
Of course.
And I think there's so much blanket advice of that's the wrong guy for you. Just leave the relationship. And it's not that simple. I've been there. And I think that everyone's trajectory and experience is going to be their own. But if I had to boil it down to one core concept, I think it would be like living in alignment and living authentically. And what that means, it's commonly used word, people talk a
Yeah.
lot about it, but it's not actually that complicated. It's what do you want? What are your values? And are you living in alignment with those things? And hindsight's always 2020. I can look back at the relationships in my life, and even just how I was showing up in general. It's easy to say, okay, if you get very clear on what you want in a partner, are you accepting that in your life? Are those the things you're actually accepting? And that discrepancy between what you say yes to and what you allow into your life and what you're attracted to it's interesting. So if you're attracted to someone who's not interested in you, which was my MO, non-committal, non-long-term commitment, really just misaligned values. And it's so easy to demonize other people, right? It's so easy to be like, they're avoidant, they've got commitment issues. It's never about the other person. It's always about you and what you're attracted to and what you're calling into your life. And exploring, that gap between who you want to be or who you feel yourself to be authentically, what you're actually allowing into your life. And that gap is the wounds. They're the protection mechanisms, they're the fears, they're the beliefs, they're the patterns. Like when you think of love, really, love we learned from our parents, our primary caregivers, and from Hollywood, the culture, and very rarely are we seeing very healthy expressions of unconditional love. It's always conditional. There's so much about the masculine and feminine, the roles. Even when you think of Hollywood, like as soon as we have the wife portrayed, she's always nagging the man. There's so much, it's really so heavy. And so having to write these patterns within us, it's a solo job. And it requires, examining what you actually want for your life and where you're not accepting that. And then, the work in between. There's a lot of things and modalities and tools, working with mentors, people that have done it or embody it, being in women's circle, the men's circle, if you're a man. There's so many tools, EMDR, somatic therapies. It's an unraveling, and it's maybe a slow process, but it's definitely worth it.
No, it's beautiful. What comes up for me is I think it's easy for us to say now that it is easy, because it is easy to live in alignment with yourself, but our brains get so colluded with this structure of the system of the American dream, and a lot of people didn't have parents who really understood these things and were able to communicate how to better align with yourself. I know my own journey, it took me like wanting to end my life to really be faced with these different rock bottoms, to have the perspective to want to like tap into that, because I knew it was knocking, like my soul was saying, do this. And I'm curious, River, if you want to answer this question, if there was like a defining moment in your life where you were able to flip the switch and kind of really start tapping in more to your soul and start living in alignment with yourself.
A moment doesn't come to mind.
Yeah.
Specifically, I think it was just over the last several years of getting to really know myself and putting myself out there and being open to new relationships. But I think a big part of it was, I would say, two things. One is, I think, the authenticity and really being in alignment with what you want and not trying to be this thing, this person that is wanted by that person and be this procured thing that is desired, but just to be genuinely, authentically you and being open to just surrendering and letting go of that control of, am I going to be wanted by this person, and just trusting that you're going to attract who you're meant to experience this life with, whether it's friendships, whether it's romantic partnerships, anything like that. And it's hard to see this in the moment, but you're also going to attract whatever relationship you're likely ready to experience at that time, I think, whether that's the person you're going to be with for the rest of life or someone you're going to experience a shorter relationship with and learn a whole bunch about yourself. I definitely know some of the relationships I was in, even though some of them were quite short, it felt like this massive shortcut into learning about myself and where I had a lot of work to do, where I had a lot of triggers and wounds still. I think it was that. And then also realizing just that radical responsibility thing of not putting blame on other people, not just taking full responsibility for the life you're creating and how you're spending your time, and all these things are up to you, and just not playing the victim of, oh, this happened and that person was whether it's someone who wasn't committed or whatever relationship issue you dealt with that ended horribly, it's like you were a co-creator in that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. So that responsibility factor, I think those two things over time really help become more refined.
Yeah. Radical responsibility, ownership, and really trusting in the time right now. I think it's easy to our minds to start looking to the future and start creating these expectations around relationships. And I think that blinds us from allowing, similar to what we were talking about before the podcast. Like I prepare, you can over prepare these things and it blinds you from living in the moment and actually listening to what your body is telling you and where and what those answers are coming, like what your body is telling you and how it's responding to your environment versus trying to look to the future and not be able to receive your environment. What a radical responsibility. Yeah. As I said at the beginning, I think you guys are very health conscious. I know you're very health conscious and prioritize that into your world. And I would put you guys on a very high level within that, just based off my conversations with you. And if I go to Camille when it comes to labels, like, yo, what's things of that nature. And I think obviously there is a big wave of people wanting to be more health conscious. And to me, a part of that love journey with yourself is being more health conscious, because I ingrained in my mind very early in this like personal growth journey of I can't be the person I need to be if I am not the healthiest version of myself. And I think starting there and within that love protocol, you'll find that love with yourself when you're going to the access of the being healthy. You start working out, that's love for yourself. You start buying food that may be more expensive than the cheap food, that is love for yourself. And I'm curious, I want to take this conversation, but I'm curious at the very beginning, did you guys grow up around families that were very health conscious? Like where, because I think there's a lot of generational, as we've talked about the culture, there's that person, our generation seems to be the one to break that cycle. We ask questions a lot more. Did you guys grow up around that? Is it something that you just felt called to? Yeah.
It's interesting. The more I reflect on my childhood, the harder I find to speak about it in either good or bad. Like whenever I speak about it, like the good part of my brain's like this and what about that, because it was so both. So when I think of like health, it wasn't terrible, but it definitely was pretty standard. I'm Canadian. Standard Canadian diet, which is occasionally fruits, occasionally McDonald's, like a base of typically good things, vegetables, fruit, that kind of stuff. But we had no awareness around grass-finished quality of meat, regenerative agriculture, not a thing. Growing up, margarine was a thing, like the heart healthy vegetable oil spreads and stuff like that. So it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. And I found my journey, it's funny because you said exercising, loving yourself, and so is eating well. For me, it didn't start that way. It actually started as a form more of self-punishment, of trying to fit into a mold a certain way. Long story short, like I was super thin growing up. I danced a lot, went to university, massive degeneracy. I partied, I did all the things, and it started to catch up with me. So I was trying to burn the calories. And if there's this step, right, and I do think it comes full circle to the point where exercise becomes a form of a gift to your body, and so does nutrition. But for me, initially, it was not. It was definitely, to fit the mold of what I thought my body should look like. And it was definitely coming from a place of more self-abuse than self-love. But that kind of led me, I got the body I wanted, and then I was like, wait, I don't love myself. What's up with that? I thought that once I had this goal, that once I reached this goal, I would love myself. Which kind of opened the door to more the somatic work and the trauma healing of the child and reconnecting with the psychological aspects of the self and the soul. And so it opened doors to different aspects of myself that I started to explore. And then come full circle where I learned to navigate nutrition from a place of love and exercise from a place of love. Diving into relationship work and all that kind of stuff, the stuff that I think makes a healthy person, but something I don't think is explored too often is what is health.
Yeah.
And for me, health is inner peace.
For you, yeah. What is health for you? Yeah.
And it's a big one too. We follow health influencers and we don't actually know what their version of health is. With aesthetic, that's fine. I don't think that you shouldn't have to compromise on those things that coexist. But just because you look like it, you have inner peace.
100%.
So many gyms, organic stores. I've been in this industry for a very long time, and very rarely are people actually healthy, aligned, healthy, mind, body, spirit.
I joke all the time. There's guys who are like twice my size, but I can outwork them when it comes to like performance. It's funny, but the inner peace thing, man, that's why and even in your intro, I shared the peace because that's what healing is for me is when we have that inner peace, then we have world peace. And my mushroom trip journey on my birthday, I couldn't talk for like the first hour. Josh, we just walking, he could talk. I'm like, I can't talk. I'm just gonna be here, just enjoy the environment. And like the first thing I said was the war inside. And it kept like echoing in my brain over the next like hour and a half. This war inside, this internal conflict was self. And that comes with when we have this outside, it comes in many forms, but for me, it's like this external world of power, status, elitist, misinformation, what is the bad healthy and things of that nature versus what is actually healthy for me and defining that for myself. And I think that is a question that everyone needs to face themselves with. But I'm curious with you, you got to that point. And I agree, like definitely health and nutrition, like it was unhealthy for me as well early on. And redefining what that meant for me. How are you making your decisions? Like after you got the body you wanted, you didn't have the inner peace. How are you making decisions to lean down these different avenues of health to find that inner peace?
It's hilarious because I feel like every podcast goes here because it's the biggest mystery of life, I think. Who is responsible, like for the spark that drives us to keep going?
Exactly.
I do not have the answer for you. But one thing I actually thought of mentioning earlier, and I feel like it's appropriate now, is that part of what has helped me grow so much as a human is having people in my life that hold me deeply accountable. And be it a mentor, a friend, definitely in partnership. You have to have people it's a dance. I'll speak to partnership. Part of relationship is unconditional love. It's saying, I accept you as you are, and as a woman, I'm not going to mother you. I'm not going to a version that makes me more comfortable and doesn't make me triggered or doesn't make this. That's the radical self-responsibility piece, and not projecting. My inner world is always going to project out into the outer world, especially in relationships. So anything that comes up for me that I ever think is his fault, it's fun. Nothing's his fault, and there's also co-creation. We want to be the best versions of ourselves together. It's part of what relationship is for us, is growing in this container, becoming better versions of ourselves. And having people in your life that are going to be like, hey, I'm noticing this. Or having a mentor, and she was ruthless through old patterns. She'd be like, Camille, like just ruthless. And if you're willing to hold relationships and know that they're loving and that is love, people who are willing to help you see your shadow, we cannot see all our shit. In fact, I would say we can't see most of it. Yeah. We hide it away. It was scary. We were children. We didn't know how to navigate something. Something felt threatened, so we put in our shadow. It's like, just shove it away and you don't want to deal with it. And then most of us navigate our lives unaware of those things and then incapable actually of accessing or healing. So having people that are willing to step up, hey, I'm noticing this, and not without kindness, not without love, but keep us accountable for the person that we can.
Yeah, we're collecting some things here. So we have radical responsibility, trust in ourselves and the universe. And I think the other big one, the word hasn't been said, but be open. Open to receiving feedback, open to receiving love, open to receiving new information, open to, new things, curiosity. It's so important in our ability because we are adapting machines. And a part of that is we have to allow our body and to adapt to an environment. And if we're closed off and have the fixed mindset and not receiving things, then we can't evolve. I think being open, in regards to the masculine and feminine, there's a level of, I feel women in general are more expressive with their emotions. I think in Austin, like I said, we have a lot more men who are more tapped into that. But I'm curious, River, have you always been pretty open in regards to receiving feedback, especially from even a woman or other men? And how has that evolved as you become more vulnerable and leaning into that? What does that journey look like for you?
Yeah, I've always been quite open with most of the people in my life, most of the close relationships, my family, my parents, and being prone to want to just open up and share and be honest and let things out. but at the same time, and also inviting feedback, because I think I had part of me that knew that I couldn't see all my own shit. There was things I just couldn't see, or what I could see was like good at the time, and then it was like, it's obviously not all good, so what am I missing? But so yeah, I think I invite a lot of feedback, but at the same time, I know that is something that I deal with, where sometimes the feedback can burn and sometimes it can tap that wound and make you reactive. And I think, one, just being on the same page about that and making sure there's an understanding of, if I react and I'm triggered and I do this thing, it's out of pain that is mine, and that's something I need to deal with, and I can be open with her and we can talk about this, but just not to take it personally and not to know that I intend any harm and I want you. It's just that whatever it is, whatever way you react, and that is not fully, completely humble and egoless and whatnot. So just being on the same page with, kind of like with emotions, like you can experience an emotion and it doesn't make you a bad person. Like it's an emotion that needs to be expressed usually. And if you don't let yourself express it, it's gonna get pushed down. So it's like not identifying with these things of, oh, that button got pushed and I got triggered. And it's revealing. It's a gift, really. It's okay. That's perfect. Highlighted what
Thank you.
you need to, what you need to work on still. If we can just sidestep that, okay, I'm sorry. Shorten that refractory period of, okay, I'm triggered, and that kind of, I reacted in a way that like I'm not fully proud of and happy with. And it's okay. I have a short refractory period and apologize and be like, sorry, dumb. I was just, that got me going. And then we can talk about it and not see it as the other person wanting to hurt us. That's that kind of, I'm the center of the universe. That person doesn't like me. They're being mean to me. And it's like the world does. It's not, it's reflecting back to them always.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
How we'll disagree about something, or one of us will get triggered, is so much has come up from like witnessing a disagreement occur in a healthy way. And like he said, we can't control when we're activated and we're responding from that like primordial brain. We're children. We respond like children. We show up like children, and we can't really think logically or rationally. But within that, still, there's been things that you've said to me that have been so healing. Like the fact that we could be like in a disagreement, both pretty activated, and to hear that the disagreement doesn't threaten our relationship and that the relationship is safe. As a woman, like for the men listening, if you feel that, to express that is so helpful, because I think men and women navigate differently. Like we have different general, I think, collective core. And so for women, the abandonment piece and the fear and all the stuff that comes up and how we will show up in our shadow when we feel like those things are threatened. For me, hearing that kind of stuff when we disagree, okay, I understand we're not on the same page right this second, but the relationship is safe, is so helpful. Like it's been incredible. It's also led me to realize that I, as a woman, don't seek perfection in partnership. Like my desire is not for River to be ever perfect, not perfect. I actually don't believe it. I have this idea that we can strive for it, but what does it actually look like in application thing? But what makes me feel safe is truth. And so when we come back together and we both are able to share why we were triggered or why we were activated in a way, which pretty much kind of always boils down to an insecurity. When you're triggered, we're trying to protect what is an insecurity that was triggered. And typically they're very different and they have nothing to do with the other person. Like they have nothing to do with the other person. We read into things. It's like we're on high alert always. The inner child is like scanning for that childhood danger. And we can laugh often. Like we take a moment, we communicate, and it's usually quite hilarious to see what can start an argument in our own mind. It has nothing to do with the other person. So finding the capacity to communicate that, understand that. And yeah, for me, that's been one of the most amazing things, is our capacity to do that. I think better and better, really.
What's coming to mind now, I'm like curious if you guys have an example that you can share. I think in theory, people can say, yes, communicate, these triggers are coming up, but I think you guys being able to paint that picture based off a scenario that comes up.
It's pretty hard.
So this is the thing. It's funny because if you actually try to remember what started a disagreement, we can almost never remember. We will actually try, Can you think of any?
I feel like that's the part of the healing journey. You let go of the baggage that doesn't support you, so it's not entering your mind. And I really believe in that.
Also, it's like it doesn't have anything to do with that. What started?
Yeah.
That I think it's Tom Billieu. Is that his name?
Yeah.
He shared that the biggest argument he ever had with his wife, 2 hours of shouting, started over a disagreement about tea. And then at some point in the disagreement, he was like, "Hold up, this isn't about tea." And then that's when he came to the conclusion that every time we are heightened in an emotional state, he used anger, but I think it's also sadness. I think women tend to slip more into sadness and men perhaps more into anger. But whenever we're dysregulated, an insecurity is present.
100%.
And so just being able to place the insecurity and communicate the insecurity, first of all.
So let's talk hypothetical.
Yeah.
How are you placing the insecurity? Say that you are triggered from something that River did later today, and you want to communicate that you're feeling, he feels like he's you think that he's dysregulated. How would you communicate that to him?
We just talk. You want to take it? Yeah.
I think just voicing it, but it's usually the person who's triggered. I
Comes
feel
back.
like they're the one who becomes dysregulated, and the other person, and we do have a somewhat noticeable pattern where, for me, I'll feel some kind of frustration, usually with myself for being triggered. It's not actually anything to do with her, because I'm super quick to be like, why am I feeling like any kind of elevated emotion? Yeah, it's like some kind of irritation, and then it turns into frustration with myself. But just like my analytical mind, whatever the masculine, like as soon as possible, want to figure out why happening, so I can
resolve it.
Yeah, exactly, and prevent it from happening and highlight where it's coming from, so I can work on that. And so as soon as I figure it out, which usually I do need some space to figure it out. Usually it's not like something we can talk through to figure it out. It's like I need a little bit of space, and that goes a long way. And the more you can cut off any sort of argument, because when you're activated, you're usually, I don't think, going to get anywhere with anyone. If one or both people are activated, it's just.
And you guys have an agreement within that relationship. Hey, I need space to be unactivated right now.
Yeah.
Also, just something you're incredible at, and I didn't even realize how important it was to me until I met you, is the inner dialogue. And even how we met, he gave me the whole backstory on reaching out to me and so many little details. So often I think we care so much about our perception, like we want to just look confident and gray and perfect. And you from the start have let me into your inner dialogue. And so if we do have a disagreement, we will come back after and communicate, okay, how did that go? Not just, okay, it's done, we apologize, move on. It's how do we both show up in the disagreement? How could I have served you better in the disagreement? What did I need? And we realize feminine wants connection, masculine wants space. Those things are like oil and water. But when you actually communicate about that with your partner, and it's okay, in that time, it's too easy to be like, I want connection. If I don't get connection, it means I'm not loved. It's like, that's not relationship. And that's not why polarity, for polarity exists, there has to be a masculine essence and a feminine essence. Those things, they ironically collide in maybe lower consciousness, but ultimately love and freedom, which is the feminine and the masculine, they intersect. That's enlightenment. When you can be free in love and committed and feel free, you figured it out, which is why I think partnership is so powerful. Is my conditioning of what love is, which typically is more suffocating. And the masculine, River's version of what love is, he wants to still feel free in that, for us to work together and communicate our wants and find a negotiation where it's like I shared earlier, when he is able to communicate with me that the relationship is safe, he can take all the space he wants. I'm like, oh, I'm cool, good. But if you don't find this bridge between the two, and it's everyone in partnership takes a step from the bank of freedom and the bank of love, they actually do connect somewhere, but it's only through communication and inner dialogue of really letting the other person in to your fears and your triggers and being patient. It's too easy to be like, you should just give me space because I need space. It's a constant negotiation without compromise. You don't have to compromise, but you do want to create something together which is built by both our wants.
One quick thing to add to it that I think is important, and this is just how I see it, but a big part of that puzzle, I think, that we both have and we do a good job of is nothing goes unattended. If we feel something
Yes.
and there's some kind of maybe inner conflict that's aching at you, and maybe you say something and life goes on, it's not a big enough deal, but then it just doesn't sit well with you, and you're like, I didn't like how I said that. I didn't like how that expressed anything to it. So just catching that and not ever letting it just go, even if it's hours later, days later, it doesn't matter. I remember the first time you meant, maybe we could use that example. Yeah,
That's a
like
great
you
Oh,
mentioned
let's
something.
go.
Yeah, we'll go
Yes,
there.
examples.
But it was like a day later, and she addressed it and in a really direct way. And that's always been harder for me. The more time that goes by after, it becomes more of a big deal to bring it up again and to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I fucked up.
Yeah.
That was because it's like it's gone, and it's not gone. So I think the prerequisite for that, I think that is so important and it's so needed, is having, in my opinion, I think it's just a really deep relationship with yourself
Yeah.
and your sense and all the sensations in your body
Awareness.
and just honesty of not pushing that down, but just being like having that connection to yourself and just knowing like that's a part of me that I need to bring up and I need to address, and it's affecting the other person. And it's so easy to push that stuff down. But I think like nothing really goes unattended in our relationship. Like even small things, if it's not great, then something's up. And space, if someone needs space, that's another thing. Like we all need space and we all need to have our own life outside of each other. But I think outside of that, if when we're spending time together and we're getting the things we need for ourselves to be happy and in good spirits, then if something's up between us at all and it's not great, then that means something needs to be addressed that we're not talking about. So we really are good about cutting it before it ever gets to that. But yeah, I'll let you. Do you want to
Yeah, I'll
tell
tell
the
a story.
story?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm the one that fucked up.
Thank you for your extreme radical responsibility here in the fold,
Yeah.
and then him taking ownership with it.
And what you said about having a self-awareness, for me, it's a sensation in the body. If you say something and you realize, ooh, that didn't feel good, hate it. And it's such a small thing. It's so powerful, as I'll share. Basically, here's the story. We started speaking on the phone before we met in person, and we were FaceTiming, and we were. Just before, this is just before River came to visit me in Mexico, where we met like in person for the first time. And we were FaceTiming. He was cooking a ribeye. And
Sounds accurate.
And look, I'm a corded headphone woman through and through.
Love it.
EMFs, just I try and avoid them.
Yep.
And we actually share that value. We're really mindful for the most
I wear
part.
my AirPods.
Yeah, once in a while he wears his AirPods, they're called.
Yep.
Like, I had roommates.
Oh,
so like
100%. So yeah.
I have a discussion around this too. But
He was
continue.
wearing his AirPods while we were speaking. And even in retrospect, it's so funny because, like you said, you're wearing them because it's easier to talk to me on the phone while you're cooking dinner. It's really sweet and thoughtful. And I made a comment. I think I do. I remember what I said.
Trying to fry your brain, bro?
It wasn't even that it wasn't even that big a jab. So there was a bit of static in the call. There was the call cut out a little bit. It was hard for him to hear me. And I said, maybe it's your AirPods. And you...
But wasn't it something?
No.
You said something relating to
it was specifically called... It was like linking the like thing with the AirPods. And it was also loaded because we both know how I feel about AirPods. So anyways, it was loaded. And it didn't land well. Nothing major happened in the conversation. We kept talking and it was completely fine.
Definitely said something.
Yeah,
You know,
but you
just
were like a little bit activate, like
Oh,
you were
yeah.
like, it's, I don't know.
Said witty back.
Yeah. But it didn't feel good in my body. I knew it was a
Yeah.
jab about the fact that I don't personally like AirPods.
Yeah.
A belief I have, I was projecting onto you. And I also did it in an indirect way, right?
That was very interactive.
Yeah, passive aggressive, 100%. And so it is one thing to be like, hey, we hadn't met yet, but when you're building a life with someone, totally. If something is a value to you and your partner is doing something that feels misaligned or harmful to their health, have a conversation about it. But never do it before you've addressed your trigger because it's going to come out in a passive aggressive way. And it was a tiny little jab, but I felt it in my body. And it's the first time I ever felt that. Ooh, that did not feel good.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, we moved on very quickly and it was fine. But the next morning, we were talking on the phone and I was about to go into the gym and I asked you if I could, like, that I wanted to apologize about something. Do you have a second to talk? And so, yeah, I just called and I apologized for a comment that wasn't kind and it didn't. And
that
take it
is
from
how
there.
we heal.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
is how we heal.
it definitely set the stage.
I have so many routes I want to go right now, but
Mhm.
continue.
Yeah, yeah. Just to add, yeah, that definitely, I feel like, set the stage for that. Had never really happened to me receiving. And I knew it was really difficult for me to do that and give that. And I'd done it maybe at times, but it was always painful to that wound of, and just really the ego, I think, and
For sure.
in wanting to be right and then admitting wrong, like long after the fact but just, you got to stay in alignment. If you feel it, like you got to express it, honesty. And so receiving that from her on the first time we had ever had any sort of spark of negativity in that way was set the bar.
That's
and then
when
it was
you
like,
knew.
yeah. And I was like, oh, fuck, this is for real. Nothing's going to get by. And one other quick thing, you mentioned addressing the trigger before. That's massive. I feel like that's like a big thing that I struggle with. And I think it's a big missing link of, maybe you could explain really quick the difference.
Yeah, to get in here so bad.
No, go. Yeah. This is great.
No, but totally. I think too often it's a co-creation, right? So when there's something that upsets us about someone else or something they're doing or saying or how they're showing up, if it activates you in any way, if it triggers you in any way, that's your work. So it's really important to distinguish the different, not everything is connected, right? There's a behavior. Let's even take the AirPods, a behavior. Someone's wearing AirPods and you're not into AirPods. You think they're bad for your health, and especially, okay, maybe you care about the person or whatever. That's a belief. My responsibility first is understanding what the trigger means to me, what it means about me. And I never went in too deep to it because I passed it pretty quickly. One easy example is I care about this person and he's harming his health. So very quickly, the subconscious can think he doesn't love me because he's harming his health. We see it with my dad was smoking growing up. So there was all this tension between him and my mom around how could you do this thing that's killing you if you have a daughter and a wife? Shouldn't you take care of your health? So we make it about us. Straight away, it's about us. And so we have a responsibility if we want a thriving relationship to first explore what our trigger means about us. I would say 90% of the time when you've done that work, it's no longer a problem. If it still is a problem, awesome. Create an environment in the relationship where you either feel comfortable enough to check in and be like, hey, so I'm noticing this thing. Or ideally, have a time. Set a time once a month to be like, let's have this check-in at the end of each month or on the new moon or whatever, where we can share with each other things we're noticing about the other person that maybe you don't see or maybe you need to little gentle calling out. But until you've addressed your trigger, it's never going to come out properly. And it's very hard to actually be curious about the other person's experience. For example, the AirPods. Hey, I'm curious because we turn the Wi-Fi off at night. We do all these things. I'm curious about your experience. Like, how does this fit into your value system? How does it work for you? We've actually talked about it. It's so convenient. And you don't use them often, first of all. When you're working out once in a while, the cords, I can attest to it. It's a nightmare. And so I can actually be curious once I've addressed my trigger about his experience, about his wants, and not make it about me. And that enables for, healthy dialogue. And perhaps the dialogue shifts the behavior, perhaps it doesn't. But as long as we can talk and the trigger is not present in me, then we can actually be two adults having a conversation about creating something together, as opposed to two children at war with one another, trying to feel seen and loved.
Yep. Because you did the work of understanding what it meant to you, it allows for a more fruitful and healthy conversation. Okay. You know what's cool is in podcasting, it's as the host, it's you want to navigate the conversation, yes, but if you feel like a guest is going on a rant, you want to stop them. But there was no rants there. That was all just fucking magic, yo. That was good. I have a few follow-up questions. So you beautifully painted the picture of really being aware when a trigger comes up and how to show up with that in regards with yourself and then within a relationship. There's two routes we can go there. I want to first go down the route of what happens when people don't face those things. I know you guys both deal in the somatic release world. Obviously, a lot of people are dealing with these things because they're not letting those emotions run fluid and they're not addressing these problems as they come up in these traumas, which is their inner peace is not there. So what actually happens to the body over time when we don't address these things and they start weighing us down more and more? How does that show up? How does that feel? How does that look to other people who love them?
I feel like I'll add some more, but I feel like it becomes those things that don't get addressed within the relationship, which creates space between two. And I think over time that space grows. And I think that's part of why someone can maybe get blindsided by being cheated on or divorced or something like
Divorce,
that. And
yeah.
it's like, we both talk about this sometimes and we're like, were they really blindsided? Were they really that close and just didn't see it coming? Or was this all this space that was created over time between them not being truly honest with each other and themselves consistently?
Mhm.
But I think the other thing I was going to add is, anytime, I think part of it is suppression. Like anytime you're not expressing an emotion you feel, whether it's a trigger or not, and it doesn't get addressed and opened up. And I think there's some level of suppression. You're suppressing things, and over time that builds and you become more sensitive and even more easy, I think. And your nervous system's just not relaxed and able to just digest life.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. That's what came up for me. We do talk about this a lot. It's fine. You become more sensitive, but also you become less sensitive. Like you become more dysregulated and less sensitive to back to that conversation around alignment of what do I want? What is my body communicating? Numb out. Most people numb out. And it becomes very difficult to actually distinguish what is serving you and what isn't. And in relationship, this is so true. For us, one of the reasons we can't sweep anything under the rug is we're both very sensitive. I'm so aware when something doesn't feel good in my body, whether it be my throat or my heart. It feels tight or it feels like locked out. I can no longer ignore that. And it's the most microscopic thing. But having that sensitivity to your body and capacity to listen, be like, okay, this doesn't feel good. What do I need right now? What do I want right now? What is this trying to communicate with me? How have I stepped out from integrity with myself? And then that's a process, like finding people who reflect back to you, who talk to you, who can unpack things, noticing your patterns, noticing there's so much to go from that point. But first hearing the whisper, because it always starts as a whisper. And over time, we numb out with not only our vices and stuff like that, but also just by not listening. And if you don't listen, the body, it keeps speaking at that tone, but eventually it shouts at you. And like you said, that's where we get blindsided, air quotes, or we get an enormous autoimmune disease or a cancer. It's like these things do not happen to us. They're slow building,
growing
over a long amount of time. And so becoming really in tune and sensitive and paying attention and not sweeping the rug, I think is what keeps you in relationship with yourself.
I agree. I think there's an illusion that it's easier sometimes to not face things, but that easy obviously turns into a lot more hard down the road. And I think as a whole, we see it within the health and like training space. People don't address these little injuries that seem easy to sweep under the rug. And I think there's a culture around pain that I like to talk about that's influenced our minds. I think that's acceptable because our parents had pain, our grandparents had pain, and that's just something I'm going to deal with. Versus the fact that there's always something that you can face that now and live a way more fruitful life and have more energy if you face that pain now. And I think with that, there's a lot of people that are numbed out for sure. And something we've talked about is awareness. And I think having awareness is one of the most powerful skills in the world. And it is a skill. We can say be in tune, listen to that whisper, but I think there's also practices that help people to develop awareness a lot better and be more present with themselves. What are some practices that you guys do now that really help you to stay grounded with yourself? And I understand in a relationship, we have the blind sides and the blind spots that we can communicate and see, but also we need to be in tune with ourselves and understand because we're constantly evolving as well. What are some practices that you've learned over the years? What are some current practices? Let's roll there.
Yeah, I can give one right off the bat. It's asking, where is my growth in this moment?
Where's my growth? Ooh.
Yeah, because like you said, the pain, for example, pushing yourself. For people who have the no pain, no gain mentality, your growth isn't resting your ass when you need rest. That's actually harder than pushing. And so only you know where your growth is. And it's moment to moment, it's situation by situation. But if you ask yourself, you'll get the answer. And
or you'll let
E- ego will want to, yeah.
Fair enough. But you know what? I still suspect that if you quiet your mind for just half a second, and it doesn't really matter how advanced you are and how conscious you are, if you ask yourself, where is my growth when you're facing a crossroad, you will hear the whisper. It might, and you might ignore it straight away and be like, and then the mind kicks in, right? You'll justify why you do need to go to the gym, or why you do need to do a 10-day fast, or why you do need to not communicate the thing that's because it's going to hurt the other person, or it's going to be, there's so many, the mind will kick in maybe half a second after, but you will get okay, what I know I need is this. And then it's fine. You might not do it, but where is my growth? Yeah, is a powerful one, because there is no such thing as a good or bad habit or behavior. It depends on what's more difficult for you. You know, this is a funny example. We're getting rid of so much stuff because we're moving in like a few days. And it's the toss-up. Do we sell or do you give this away? And we had this conversation of what is actually harder to do. Because if there's in different cultures, selling it's like bartering. It's all part of, you want to get as much as you can for what you have. That comes more naturally. So the growth in that, with that mindset, is actually to learn to surrender and give things away. But if you don't like the act of, I don't want to be cheap and I don't want to ask for $5, your growth is selling the thing. So it's like there's really no such thing as a good or bad outcome. What is more challenge? And the challenge isn't the more difficult thing of what the world sees as being difficult. A workout is harder than watching TV for an afternoon. Objective difficulty, exactly. But for you, if you work out, you're doing the 75 hard and you're on day 74 and your ego is, all I have was one day left and you are fucking tired and your body needs to rest. You actually are doing the harder thing by resting.
Dang, I love that perspective, because as someone who's moved a lot since I've lived here, every single time the easy thing for me is I don't want to sell this. It's too much work. So I'm going to give it to everyone. But I see there's a level of growth of the other side, because I need to have more of a business mind. And I can sell these things and put a little extra work. Interesting.
Yeah, it was funny. I was feeling resistant to sell things, and she was the opposite. And so she's technically like, you need to do this and I need to do this. And I was like, okay. Pretty funny.
That's funny. That's cool.
Mm.
That's cool. What about you, River, in terms of seeking more presence so you can have more awareness to dissect your thoughts and emotions that come in?
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. It's different for everyone, I think, but for me, what I know is I don't need anything complicated. I don't need anything really that specific. The main thing is just I need to give myself time by myself without any distractions, and that the biggest distraction being like technology, screens, phones, music, podcasts, whatever it is. And I don't necessarily need to meditate so many hours a day or do these certain protocols. It's just I notice when I give myself time to just be with myself and let it all bubble up, like the thoughts that have been like pushed down, and it's finally their time to come up, and I hear the bells and I'm like, oh, you do next, or whatever it is, or that's the thing I wasn't realizing. So it's just time by myself. Ideally, in nature, for me, it makes the biggest difference. I think to be able to just be with yourself and do nothing in the woods or in the ocean or on the beach or whatever, something like that on a trail is massive. So really excited to have the ocean for that and to be able to do something like surfing, which is very stimulating, but also a lot of time with yourself too, when you end up just actually sitting there waiting for waves a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah.
That's a big one. And it's not easy. It's easier said than done. It's really, I think it's harder than ever now because of all the stimulation we have.
We're designed to go, we think we need to go fast, everything, consume. Yeah.
Incredible. Like you reflect and write and unpack things written.
Yeah. Like, when did you start writing?
I don't know. Actually, we were going through our shit, and I found like the first journal I ever wrote in. I guess I was like 13 or something. I don't know.
Cool.
But I haven't been writing nonstop since
yeah.
then. Nowadays, I wish I hand wrote stuff. I don't. I just type it out, and
it's tough for me to handwrite, man.
And
I got this cool like journal that looks like something from Indiana Jones, like the way it's wrapped. I'm like, oh, this is gonna cool. I'm gonna use it for sure.
I have one too.
Yeah.
I have one that's been empty for so long.
It's so tough.
Yeah.
I got like the first 2 pages in. I was proud of myself.
I didn't write a single page. I've been hauling it around because I felt bad. Like an ex-girlfriend like gave it to me as my birthday gift or something. I've been
Yeah.
like, I asked him, you want this? And I'm getting rid of it.
Now it's like I can now take my thoughts and stuff and use AI for my thoughts
Yeah.
and be able like I'll even do voice recordings, do my thoughts, take that transcript and then put it into something else because I'm better at talking than sitting down
Yep.
and writing.
Yep.
And I think as through the practice of the growth thing that you just shared, I think me sitting down and writing is probably better for my growth. But in the meantime, I'm maximizing my skills. I love that question. I'm gonna sit
Yeah.
with that. That's a beautiful question.
That's a good point. Yeah, I do the voice recordings too. I need to go through those. So you have AI to
Well,
transcript
yeah.
those.
So I use what's called just record, and then
Okay.
you can take the transcript from that.
Cool.
And yeah, I don't always use AI, but
No,
like
but it's giving me the thought of I have hundreds of voice recordings because if I'm driving and I have a thought and
for
I
sure,
record instead
exactly.
of write,
That's the
yeah,
big thing is because I don't want to. If I'm not in a setting where I can receive and write,
yeah.
and I like wait to that thought,
Needs to
and
get
then I
out.
go to
Needs
sit
to
down to
get
write.
out,
I'm like,
yeah.
fuck, what was I thinking?
Yeah, yeah. Have those and just a lot of notes. It's nothing crazy, but just writing down reflections and
Yeah.
things to give awareness is pretty powerful when it comes to me. And I'm like, I think I should write that down. And then also just writing, especially when you're feeling like maybe like heightened emotion or trigger or something, just writing about it is, I think, pretty therapeutic in itself.
I want to take a moment to connect to something you said because you're only the second person outside of myself that has said it in this context that I've been sitting with. I think as creators, we want to make an impact and make a positive impact. And there's constant an internal reflection on my end of understanding what is the avenue that's really calling to me that I want to tap into. And I've labeled my basically my two sides, love and freedom. You said those words earlier in regards to the feminine and the masculine. And I find that love for me is this right here, these conversations, the podcast that comes from it, and specifically helping men in the future develop love routines with themselves to create even more male leaders is something I'm really drawn to. Then the freedom is the philosophy and the mindset around not being free of triggers, being free from reacting impulsively, being free of our trauma, and being free to move however we want for as long as we want. And I think both of you connect with that in different ways. And I know specifically River, just from working with you and talking with you in terms of movement and the body and how empowering it is to be able to just move this vessel. Like the fact that I can just bike all around town and not, it's just, I don't need you. These legs can get me from this place to this place. And this just came up as we were talking is like, what do you think the role, and specifically with freedom of movement, plays into people's, because like we talked about earlier, those pain points that we get and then they foster, and then same thing with the breakup or divorce, it's an injury, it's an ACL tear, the knee replacement, it's a hip replacement. Those build up over time. What would be your message to someone that maybe has this nagging injury and they don't really know how to face it? And obviously the first thing that comes to mind is see a trainer, but like a lot of people aren't in maybe the space to have the mindset of investing in themselves and thinking that this is too big of a cost.
Sure.
What do you think is the message to that person to address that? And then two, what do you think is the impact of not having these limbs and injuries as you age with time, and just paint that picture of the loss the loss of freedom that you're going to have as you age and what the impact that's going to have on you?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is build a deeper relationship with yourself in the physical. So get to know your body, find body awareness. I think we talked about how powerful awareness is. Body awareness, I think, is massive. And it's something that takes up a big portion of the work that I do with clients usually when I'm trying to help them. If they're coming to me specifically with some kind of pain or injury.
We lose it because of this right here.
Yeah, exactly. A big part of it is just becoming more aware of your body and where your body is in space. And there's no way around it. It's nice to be able to hire someone who specializes in something and can help you, and you don't really, it's hands off and they help you through it. But if you can't always do that or can't afford that, then the only other route I see is learning about your body and like teaching yourself things. And with the internet now, it's pretty awesome. If you have pain somewhere in your body, you can easily go to YouTube, and there's literally thousands of videos talking about every sort of pain you could experience.
Now we got ChatGPT, so it can even get, and it's connected to the browser, so it can be even better.
Seriously, it's crazy. And it's not easy. It still can be confusing. But if you want to experience, this ties into the long term, if you want to experience freedom with your body, then I think there is some level of requirement that you just need to body to an extent. You don't need to know as much as a trainer, but I think you need to learn about your body, find body awareness, experiment with your body. Okay, let's figure out like I have so many major joints. Let me see like what they can do. Oh, they can bend this way. They can, oh, that hurts when I go this way, or this feels weak, but that feels strong. Just get to know your body. And you can use the internet and speed it up, or you can just do it in an intuitive way. But I think there's no excuses. It comes down to like the radical responsibility. Like it's your body. You're going to have it forever. And you can do a lot of shit that's free if you have access to the internet. So there's no like excuses really.
Yeah.
And
Why do you think physical freedom is so important?
I think it's a good question. I take it away and see how you feel.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I think it's hard to put into words, but if it's, I think the fact that they go hand in hand, movement is therapeutic to the mind, and we need the mind to create movement technically, like the relationship between the two. And the mind is how we can express ourselves through movement technically. We have the body and we can run, we can dance, we can do a sport, but we need the mind to be able to express, especially in our authentic way of expression. And I think that it's something you always have access to, like your thoughts. It's the two things you really will always have control of, is your thoughts and your mind, and then your body and how you want to move, how you want to position yourself, how you want to exercise, how you want to go about life in the physical. And just, I think, acknowledging that everything you do, everything, the position you're in, the position we're sitting in, how we're breathing, every single moment of your day is an opportunity to make your body better and retain that freedom or expand it or shrink it. And acknowledging that every moment you have this opportunity, it's almost like money you're spending every second. There's no way around it. There's no excuses. Like, you are responsible for how your body is going to feel. And if you are getting pain, realize that it's not a good or bad thing. It's just information. Just information. It's like the trigger. It's okay. Your body's not exactly super happy with what you just did. Let's unpack that and figure out why. Not always
Well said.
super simple, but
Yeah, no, said. It's crazy to me how, and I love the perspective. Take a leg away and imagine your life. What is that going to be like? That's super scary to me. It would be very hard for me to want to be fulfilled and have love and have all the things that I currently have if that's taken away from me. I want to, in regards to love with you posted recently, a well-loved woman. Maybe you can quote it better. I forget exactly what you said, but I want to okay, a well-loved woman is like, it brings about infinite possibility. Something around those lines. Can you explain what that means? The capacity.
That's
yes,
what it was.
That's what it was.
The capacity of a well-loved
is infinite. Yes.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time?
The capacity of a well-loved infinite. And yeah, what that means to me, I really actually learned it is noticing that how much I can do between work, cooking for us, taking care of myself, taking care of our relationship, of our home. I get it done, but in a way that is so easeful because of feeling well loved by him. And it's like an exponential return when he shows up for me in a grounded, like, loving way. And I mean, that in of itself, we could have a whole podcast about what that means, right? Unpacking that, because I think too often love is an art, right? It's truly an art. And I think too often we just operate from patterns instead of understanding what it means to love well and how to show up for a partner and for ourselves and for the relationship. There's so much to unpack, but basically my experience has been like that my capacity is just infinite when I feel well loved. And I think it's particularly that expression of the feminine, like we have this yearning for love. And too often, I think I had a follow-up post inviting men feel that their partner is too much of this or too little of that. Try loving her well and see how much she can change when she's well loved. And that doesn't absolve women of the responsibility that ultimately I'm responsible for how I show up and everything. I'm also responsible for showing up in a way for you that makes you feel not only well loved, but also free. Understanding that the typical thing that men grapple with is freedom, and the thing that women grapple with is love. So if we can show up in a way, for me, where my difficulty, say, would be more to make you feel free in a relationship, and vice versa, like for him, when a man craves freedom, how can I still honor myself while making me feel well loved? And it's life changing for me. Like I feel like infinite. I feel like I can do anything. I can show up so well for you. It's this co-creation, right? You don't want to choose a partner who, can't do the thing that if you're a giver, you want a giver. You want it to be both partners who show up in a way where we're honoring each other's wounds as well, understanding that ultimately, sure, freedom and love are the same thing, but most of us aren't there yet. And so it's difficult to expect someone to show up in a way, but when both do, not out of, well, you owe me this, but it's a gift. David Data speaks of this.
I was just thinking away the spirit of the man. I read it last year. Yeah,
there's the 3 stages of love, right? Stage 1, we're masculine and feminine role, but both from a place of, you owe me this. You're the woman, so you have to do this, and you're the man, so you have to do this. And then the second stage, which is where a lot of people are, is the 50-50, which absolutely kills polarity. Everyone splits the house chores 50-50, the income's 50-50, the taking care of the kids is 50-50, and you're going to be living with a roommate, right? There's no polarity there. But then having this third stage of love, like he talks about, where we can show up, me and my feminine and you and your masculine, but without the expectation, but with a gift of me gifting you my understanding of how to honor you and vice versa. It's been so transformative. I noticed myself just like becoming the thing that I think men want. And so I think it's easy for a man to be like, I want you to be this, and then I'll be able to love you. Instead of being like, can I love you to give you the environment in which you will blossom? It's hard.
You know what's really cool? We started this conversation around these type of relationships, and I think everyone wants what you just exactly described, because I think there's what is going to happen with that is just, as you were expressing, you have so much infinite possibility because you have so much love within you. And with that last comment that you said, because as you were saying that too, David Data was coming up, because I read Way the Superior Man. Now I'm an expert, and I'm just kidding, but I read it for the first time last year, and it was
Women
basically
read that book too.
I agree.
Great.
I think in both, basically every scenario he was given is just lead with love. That's why it's on my hand too. It's not why it's on my hand, but that I just remember that's on my hand. and allow that space and that trust, because then once you start there, then the actual things can start blossoming, and you can get the truth of a specific scenario, versus coming at it with judgment and criticism is not going to lead to anything positive. I see that even in teams, and even with Squatch in here, is like allowing and trusting someone to do their job or step into what they're supposed to do, and not trying to micromanage people. And the same thing with a relationship, and micromanaging, it doesn't allow freedom from the man's side to really lean into being who you're designed to be. Like I said, I think a lot of people want this thing, and I think we've talked about a lot of ways today for people to create that, and it always starting here. But what are ways that River is expressing love for you in regard, and then you are expressing his and allowing for his freedom? I think you talked a little bit about it, but are there any specific practical steps, I guess, that are things that you notice throughout the day that really has that cohesion?
I think I know for myself, I think it will definitely depend on what an individual wants and is attracted to. There's lenses like the love language, stuff like that. I touched on it a little bit before, but one of the big things for me is your capacity to hold truth and just communicate truth and your self-reflection, and you let me into your inner dialogue and what you're experiencing. Even if we're having a disagreement about something, very quickly you can let me in and say, this is what I'm experiencing. And for me as a woman, back to that idea of not seeking perfection, but deriving safety out of truth, that I would always rather have the truth than the illusion of connection. I actually feel like you can't really be connected to the present. And something I know from you that I can count on is truth. And it doesn't mean go on a first date with someone and tell them all your traumas.
Yeah.
There's the contextual reality of you want to feel safe enough to open up to someone. But knowing that we're both devoted to that and devoted to our own sovereign growth relationship, and that means showing up well. And that makes me feel loved. There's so many things.
Yeah.
We communicate a lot of appreciation towards one another for little mundane things.
What does that look like?
Always thanking me for doing the dishes, or the smallest things. Yeah. Opening pretty much affects the other
For each other.
person.
That's so cool. Yeah, yeah.
And there's certain things that she does more of, and certain things I do more of. We've settled in nicely to a pattern of it's like traditional gender roles. If something's more like hands-on or like fixing something or dirty, yeah, then I'll take care of it. And if something's more on the front of the kitchen or cleaning, then she does a great job. But yeah, food, like she makes amazing food, and we both have very similar values in terms of what we want to consume, which is really helpful. But just just voicing it, just voicing appreciation if you feel it, and which is for me all the time. And if you feel it, don't let it go to waste, because it's great for you. But if you're appreciating someone doing something, then voice it to them because it feels good. And
It's an expectation at this point, right?
Yeah.
We've fallen, we have a routine.
A respectful
Yeah.
expectation.
Yeah.
and the expectation there.
Yeah, totally. And it's, for me, I'll notice, and I've shared this before, that I used to hate doing dishes. Like, I envisioned like having someone do the dishes for like me and my future partner. Like, it was in my like part of this like manifestation plan. I was like, there's no way I'm doing the dishes.
We're gonna hire someone for that.
And I went in deep. I'm like, how would that even work? Would they come once a week and all the dishes go into a room? Like, I hated doing the dishes. And then something like switched in me as soon as I started doing the dishes for us, and that we would be so appreciative. I love doing the dishes now. Like, I enjoy it. It's not an act. It's like something happens. There's an alchemy. I think especially for women, like when there's an appreciation, right? Like for all the men out there, they're like, I wish my wife, it's try appreciating. And it's vice versa, right? Like a lot of women, I've started writing the next trilogy to that post, is on the flip side for women want a man that's going to make decisions and make her feel safe. Are you letting him do that? Like when he wants to lead, are you actually trusting him? Have you chosen a partner that you trust, that you will actually surrender to? Because we're raised in a masculine world, call it the patriarchy or whatever else. This is not something that men have done. This is something women participate in. And we participate in it most obviously to me by trying to be the man in the relationship. And so if you want a man to lead, and if you don't trust his lead, find someone to trust, because you can't play both games. It doesn't work. The polarity doesn't work. It's emasculating. And then you end up being mothering. It's a shit show, really. So
we see it in America. It's been a big, as you're expressing. I think there's the other side of this too. What you're talking about really is, I call it a power that a man beholds, is when he gives his love. For you to rewire your thinking like that, that is a power. And I think some women can be misused, or men can misuse that power to manipulate women. And I just want to, with that, be conscious of the type of leader that you're letting in, and make sure he actually makes you feel safe. Do you have something to add to that? Because I'm going to go.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's one last focus I really wanted to tap into. And one thing that I like to say is I'm getting younger every day. Just from a mindset standpoint and challenging the cultural things. I understand biologically I am aging. I get that. But I do know that I am learning how to be healthier, because I was not taught that, one, but I was also placed into a schooling system and grew up in a world that they want us to be unhealthy. We don't need to go down that route, but we understand. And it took breaking out of the matrix or breaking the hamster wheel to really start challenging that and going down a route to be healthier. But I think with that, as we've expressed earlier, there's a lot of information out there. And I think even with the context of the headphones and the AirPods and the EMFs, there's so much ways to get healthier. And I think two things I want to just talk about. One, I think people prioritize a lot of high level stuff when they're not doing the low level stuff, like drinking enough water. But I also think people stress, just like I think COVID, even during COVID, people stressing about getting COVID was like increasing their chances of actually getting COVID. I think this is a very interesting conversation. And it seems like this is something you guys have already tapped into, of how to, I believe in scalability. You know, what's like the basic needs? Our body needs water. It needs whole foods at some capacity. It needs sleep, and it needs to move. It needs the blood to flow. And I think let's start there. And what is that first step for you to start integrating, and stop letting all this information come at you at once, and you're fixating on the wrong things. So I'm curious, like for you, what what would be your message to that first step for you for each one of those protocols? Like, how did you develop a healthy water routine? How did you develop a healthy relationship with food? How did you first start getting into movement? And what is like your journey with sleep? Because I know I had a very bad journey with sleep and sometimes still get bad nights of sleep, but like I'm learning how to be a better sleeper and things of that nature.
Yeah. Like you said, I think starting with the basics is so important. And for water's a big one because so many people drink water that's not good. So
Yep.
that's I would say one of the most simple things to just start with is just stop drinking tap water or water that's filtered, kind of partway filtered, because the things that are water dissolvable.
What's the best route there? Like a Berkey?
Yeah, it depends on where you live, but yeah, the Berkey's pretty good. It's definitely affordable. We were just talking about this. We don't know how great it is in terms of like actually filtering successfully long term the things that for what they advertise as.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the simplest would be you can get water from the refill stations in like a jug, and like it takes time, but you could do that if you can't afford to get it like delivered. So it's like
There's some places that do that.
Whole Foods is a
Whole
good one. They
Foods,
have the reverse osmosis, which is quality. But yeah, I would say that's definitely the first step is if you could do two things, stop consuming all tap water. We don't even brush our teeth with tap water. Tap water here is gnarly. In a city, it's usually gnarly. It's just the way it is. And then if you can, get a shower filter because you're going to be consuming the equivalent of, I think, like 6 cups of water when you take a shower. And that
'cause
water,
your
pores are wide open. And you're just absorbing all the chlorine and the fluoride. And if you want to just keep it simple, chlorine enough is enough of a reason to do that. So if you could do those two things, and then with food, I would say the first tier is just, it's hard because it's very intertwined with culture, but
For sure.
just eat real food that's not processed. And you got to be super careful where you go to eat out. We're just laughing. We're meeting a friend for dinner this evening, and
Not a lot of options.
we called a restaurant that's like all doing all the right stuff, and we found out like all their meat is grain finished, like not organic, like the fish is farmed. Yeah, the well, horseshit, literally. They say
that was like the last one.
I
I thought
know.
was
they say no seed oils, and I'm like, yeah, it's on their website. She's like, yeah, but I don't trust them now because they're just greenwashing. They say on their menu like sustainable caught fish, grass fed beef, and she called and no, it's not grass finished. But anyway, so
long story short, cook your own food.
yeah, and it's a part of what you value, and if that's a big part of your life, then that's a sacrifice you make. But for us, a big part of our life is cooking at home, and it's a ritual for us, and we get to eat what we know feels good in our body, and we get to have that experience together, and that's what we value. And it also is more affordable. So it's like then we can put those resources towards something else we value more so than eating out for us specifically. Yep. That's what works. But sleep's a big one. It's an indicator. If you're not sleeping well, it can tell you so many other things. But it's like a check-in. But just, I would say, disconnecting from technology in the evening if you can before sleep, especially light, like the blue blocker glasses, and religiously, and have some alternative light systems, some lights that are with red bulbs in our house that we turn on after dark. And
what time do you put the glasses on? Does it get dark?
Yeah, pretty much dark. Yep, we go for a walk usually after dinner when it's like dusk, and then after that the glasses are on if we're looking at screens.
Yeah.
That. And
the walking after a meal is a great one too, to regulate blood sugar.
Yeah, massive for the glucose, for digestion, for a lot of things. Yeah, that's a great one to start with. An easy one that's free.
It's an easy habit that you just pair. You're getting more steps in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's our movement piece.
Yep. Yeah, for movement, yeah. That was the other thing to tie in. I would say if you could move early in the day, even if it's just a walk, to pair that with keeping your circadian rhythm in tune, which is going to affect the sleep and the movement, doing a short little walk early in the morning, and then maybe after big meals, that's massive places.
What I got from was like a starting place.
Yeah, it's a starting place.
Yeah. Mine won't be physical. No, that was all physical.
No, that's money. Yeah.
That was spot on for the physical. I'm going to take it metaphysical I feel like what is vital for me is allowing yourself to be seen. I think so many of us have beliefs about ourselves that we perceive ourselves to be unworthy because of things that have happened to us, things we've witnessed, things we've said, things we've done, things that have been done to us. There's like a whole list. I actually encourage people to write a shame list of all the things that you're ashamed of about yourself, physical. Actually, I'll tell a story after. Hear me about this, but figure out all the things that you don't like about yourself and that you try to hide from the world. Things that are physical, stories about your life, about your past, and make it your mission to let people in on those things, because it's an extremely corrective and healing experience
it's
to
powerful.
share parts of yourself that you think make you unworthy, and then for them to be received love. And so don't necessarily tell people on the street. It could work. Find safe places to connect with people and to people that you trust in these circles, with mentors, with teachers, with friends, creating spaces to be vulnerable and allowing yourself to be seen. I think so many of the reasons we don't take care of ourselves is that we don't actually feel worthy. And if you put down the things on paper that you're ashamed of about yourself in the past and you let people in, little by little, it is so corrective and healing, and it rewires literally, like on a neurological level, the beliefs you have about yourself. And so it becomes easier to be healthy and to actually go out and buy the water filter, because subconsciously, when you don't think you're worthy, it's actually quite hard to do those things. And I think that there's a kind of force required that I don't believe is healthy. I think that taking care of yourself should come quite naturally when you've done the work to unpack why you're worthy of. And the story that came up is the first time we met, I think it was like the second day hanging out, River asked me, like, what are all the things that you love about yourself? And specifically body, but I think it was mind and body, like personality traits and all the things you hate. And this was like one of the first couple of days of us hanging out. We just shared all our insecurities with one another. And it's so powerful to be met, love, and in like a safe place to have that conversation with someone that you're building a life with. It's wild to think that someone who you want to build a life with might not know those parts of you. And in fact, inviting people in your life to help heal those is, yeah, I think a good starting place for health.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel like that my answer to my last question that I have everyone is, imagine that you're an intercom talking to the world based off the conversation we just had for the past hour and 20 minutes. What would be the biggest takeaway and kind of the message that you want them to lean into? And I feel like you just said some money that you can, if you have something else come up,
Yeah, I
you're
think
welcome.
it's the same. It's be yourself and trust that it will attract the right people and into your life, partnership, friends, work. Nothing that's meant for you can ever escape you. So by being authentic, you actually become a magnet for what you want in your life. Otherwise, the flip side of that is, okay, so maybe you get things in your life by putting on an act, and then what you have to act for the rest of your life. And every time someone actually loves you, it's reinforcing your low self-worth because you're not authentically yourself. So there's a reinforcement of having to perform. So basically, like taking off the masks. How many masks can you take off? Take them off, find the mask, notice the desire to perform, and call yourself out. It's like River brought up at the beginning of the conversation, it's never too late to have a corrective experience. If you notice yourself showing up suboptimally or performatively, call yourself out and communicate it. People do not want perfection. They want authenticity and truth. And anyone who is looking for an act, like, trust me, that's not the person you want to be in relationship with, or I would say even friends.
I would say even mentors and leaders, like people who talk about the social media world, and there's all this influence of followers and things of that nature. Actually dissect and look at those people who are authentic and showing themselves out on a platform for whatever purpose, but like for their own meaning. But if you want to connect and buy from someone, buy from people who are showing up for in that way. What's your message?
It goes back to building that awareness with yourself. I think make it a goal to really get to know yourself deeper than you already do, or if you feel like you don't know yourself, just know that it's actually possible and it's simple. And I think it starts with just being with yourself and giving your psyche and your subconscious and everything inside of you space and time to just bubble up. And yeah, right now, like I said, I think it's harder than ever because of all the distractions and how easily we can be stimulated and entertained and quiet that voice. Basically, with all the different types of coping mechanisms we have these days there's so many things. And if you can carve out time to eliminate all of those things and just be with yourself, doing nothing, and just see what comes up. Do that regularly. You're going to build a really deep relationship with yourself, and that is going to be that voice that you always have, that compass that I think will direct you in life in the way you're supposed to go. Yeah. And that's a big one. And then from there, you have that compass to be like, okay, am I in alignment with that? But you first need to find what that is. And I think a lot of people, it's weak. Like that connection's kind of weak, and it's not, maybe they don't trust it, or they don't even know if it's right, you know what I mean, or wrong. And so just give yourself the time to build that relationship with yourself, and everything else I think comes after that.
Look inward. And sometimes you need to go outward in terms of different environments, find the inward answers, but the answers are freaking there. They're always there. Man, okay. That was fun. Yeah?
Yeah.
I told y'all, this is the dangerous couple coming in, dropping golden nuggets. That's a wrap. I hope that you're able to take some type of meaning and from the insights that they dropped today and apply it to your own life, because that's what's beautiful about human beings is we have our own experiences and we create these truths that we're attached to, that have meaning to us, and then we share, and then you develop truths from that information because we've all been consuming from other people that lived here before us. And it's a constant passing of love for us to take in what it means to us. So that is a wrap for this podcast. Stay blessed. All love. Thank you.